Hello, and welcome to Sound Off with System One. I'm your host, Krista Kornchuk, and this is my co-host, Morgan Bossy. We're here today with our panel of experts to discuss your biggest interview and resume questions. That means if you're tuning in live, you can send your most pressing job search related questions and we'll get to answering them. Before we get started, here are a few words about System One. System One is a leading provider of specialized, highly technical outsourced services and workforce solutions to critical infrastructure, technology, life sciences, and government sectors, putting more than 650 employees and 10,000 contractors to work in the United States, Canada, the UK, and Brazil. As you're tuning in, please join us in the comments. We'll be monitoring them. Let us know where you're joining from and what industry you work in. And as I said before, this is a live Q&A, so we're going to answer as many questions as possible. Next, I'm going to have our panel of experts introduce themselves. They'll also be sharing their hot jobs, which you can find at the bottom of the screen or by scanning the QR code. To view all other available jobs, please visit jobs.systemone.com. Kat, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Matos. I'm a senior recruiter at Gillette. I specialize in life sciences and healthcare recruitment. My hot job today, where I have two jobs actually, it's an OnCore Analyst 2 and an OnCore Operations Intake. Both positions are permanent and hybrid in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. The OnCore Analyst 2 is be supporting sponsored research. So that means we require 2 years of experience working with OnCore and building it, as well as clinical research. So you'll end up reporting, supporting, or configuration of just OnCore itself. And then the OnCore Operations Intake, we're pretty much requiring 3 years of experience with OnCore as calendar build experience. So that's protocol build, study calendars, budget, and QC reviews. So if you have those experience, definitely either apply or reach out to me directly.
I'm Jane Hillman. I am a senior recruiter with System One. I sit in the Pittsburgh office. My hot job is an HR service associate. This would also be in the Pittsburgh area. It is more of a remote position than not, but requiring some on-site days for training and then 1 day a week for the on-site requirements. Ultimately, we're looking for anyone with a little bit of HR experience or someone who studied really any degree in college that could be interested in an HR role. That's pretty repetitive. As long as you're comfortable learning, we're comfortable teaching.
Excellent. And I'm Dennis Hurley with System One. I'm a senior technical recruiter focused mainly in the IT arena. And my hot job is in Schaumburg, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. I'm looking for a full stack application engineer. The ideal candidate that I'm looking for is somebody with expertise in modern .NET and .Core for the backend services, alongside with experience with Angular, a solid understanding and expertise of application architecture at an enterprise level, secure API design. This role is 3 months contract to hire. It is with a major property and casualty insurance provider here in North America, and they are looking to hire ultimately after those 3 months. So let us know if you're interested.
Thank you everyone for sharing your tips. Without further ado, let's get started. Oh, your jobs, sorry about that. Got ahead of myself, but I'm gonna have our panel of experts start by sharing job tips that their candidates have been benefiting from. So please also start sending in your questions now. We'll get to answering as many as possible today, but Kat, we'll start with you again for the job tips.
Perfect. Yeah. So the biggest one I get a lot is the resume and how long it needs to be. Typically depends on your experience. So sometimes people who have 20 years experience will say, oh, I have to have 1 page. That is not, I feel like that's more of a myth than anything else. If you don't have experience, then yes, it would make more sense to have 1 page. But if you have tons of years experience, you can do up to 4 pages. It depends on your industry and what that consists of, but you want to make sure it's very detailed as possible, but also keep it neat and clean, where it just be easy for us to read, or any hiring manager as well. So you want to make sure that's organized too, and always tailor your resume to the job that you're applying to.
That's a great tip, Kat. So when you're applying to these jobs, I think one of the biggest tips that I can offer to candidates, although I'd like to hire you in the job I'm sending, so a lot of people tell me, hey, I've applied to 5, I'm in this stage. I think it's really, really good to stay organized. I'm a fan of Excel, so I would recommend for anybody to have an Excel sheet set with where your resume has gone, what sort of jobs you've gone to, and ultimately boils down to where you are with each and every job. This way you'll stay organized. You can send follow-ups because we do recommend following up with the recruiters that you work with. At the end of the day, I think it'll be very helpful to keep track of your status with varying jobs.
Excellent tips. On a shameless promotion thing, when you talk about recruiters, Jane and Kat, work with a recruiter, find ones that you enjoy working with and that can help you navigate it, because it is a really complex environment out there. I think System 1 has some of the best of them, but find people that you can work with and start talking to them about what's going on with the job market, because there's a lot of things that may or may not be accurate when you read them online. You may be chasing after some things and wasting some energy on opportunities that may not really always be there. You can get a better sense of what maybe the applicant pool looks like, what your competition may look like. There's a lot of benefits with working with recruiters. Recruiters tend to be able to tell you what's going on inside the environment, or maybe how actively they're actually looking or quickly to hire. Working with recruiters is great, and finding them is usually through networking on LinkedIn, like using this platform that we're broadcasting on right now. Get out there, talk to people. That those quick, easy apply buttons are handy, but the more people you talk to, usually the better results you're going to have, I find.
Well said. Yeah, most jobs come from networking, so we will certainly be covering that. We have our first question coming in from April. She has been getting a lot of unsolicited text messages, so she wants to know, is there any real detriment to removing my phone number from my public resume and profiles?
Start with this one. I'll take it. I do believe for public resume, put the information out there that you feel comfortable being contacted through. So if you're not comfortable being contacted through a text message, I would take that off for your comfort. At the end of the day, we do like to pick up the phone and make a call. So that's our preferred method of starting the conversation. If we see an applicant, sometimes an email can put a little delay in the process. So if there's a phone number, we pick up the phone and we call. Sometimes I know my team specifically, I'll encourage shooting out a text after sending or leaving a voicemail just as a follow-up, which also can allow candidates to know that we're open to texting. So if you take it off of your public, that's totally up to you. I think on your profile and your public resume, whatever you feel comfortable putting out there, you should. But at the end of the day, it's nice to have when you do apply to a position, so we can call you and talk a little further.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, the one other thing that I've run into that people are using on the tech side is there's a lot of virtual numbers that you can get completely free that can be tied to your cell phone. Google offers one, it's called Google Voice, that you can publish that phone number. So it's not your personal number. It also allows texting as well too. But it's a forwarding services that forward to it. So you can kind of screen some of it out and might be able to wash it. That might help too. But yeah, I agree. It's really whatever you're comfortable putting out there, public information wise. And it's hard. You don't want to become a subject of all sorts of spam, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you guys. I mean, so whatever you're comfortable with, like even if you're applying for jobs, there's always things on there in our applicants that you can either opt out of text messages too. So if you don't want to get those, you can definitely click that. I know we as System 1 do that as well. So sometimes people do apply for jobs and they don't want a text message, which is perfectly fine. So I'll send an email out after you apply to a job if you are doing, of course, the right fit. But again, it's whatever you're comfortable with.
Awesome. And then our next question from Allie, what's one improvement most job seekers can make to their LinkedIn profile today?
I can take this one. Making sure it's accurate. I think a lot of times, if you're using your LinkedIn profile and it's not up to date, it's not showing your current position or anything at all, it may seem, and especially if you don't have a lot of connections to, it could look like a fake profile or just not in use. That's another thing sometimes we run into is that we get those fake profiles. So we're just not sure if you're a legit person. So if you're keeping up to date, if you're putting up more of your, work history there, it's going to show that you are a legit person, but it also shows that you are currently using it where we can reach out to you too for it.
Yeah.
One thing when I'm searching on, Sorry, Dennis. I think I might be on a lag here. I was just going to add the banner on LinkedIn that you can offer for open to work is really helpful when we are searching, especially for a high need job. I don't know, I feel a little less like I'm dropping something cold on someone if they're open to work. Then I can mention that, hey, I saw your preferences. I have a hybrid position. It looks like you're open to hybrid. So those are really helpful for us as well.
Yeah, excellent point. Touching on that banner point, I was going to say one thing is, especially in the world of AI, it's very easy to do. Try and have it some sort of headshot on there. I've seen people with cartoon characters and things like that. This LinkedIn is not for like this traditional social media. You are looking for a job, and I'm not anti-cartoon characters necessarily, but you can take a headshot. Maybe you have not necessarily sitting on your couch or something like that, but you can do it, run it through AI and say, hey, make it look like I'm a professional or anything like, not make, you probably are a professional, but you know what I mean? You can clean up and provide a neutral background, something with a neutral background. And that way, when, hiring folks are starting to take a look at you, they can, associate with who you are. So it makes it, a lot easier when we can put a face to a name. We're humans after all.
Awesome. And then our next question. Can you share more about working with a recruiter? How do you find or choose them?
I'll start off with this one. There's a lot of recruiters out there, and like any industry that has a lot of things, there's strong ones and maybe not so strong ones. You can find recruiters on LinkedIn very quickly by just doing a recruiter search. A lot of different industries have recruiters, as you're listening to all of us kind of have different backgrounds, and we serve different markets. A lot of times larger organizations like System One, let's say, for example, you're not a tech person, but you find me on LinkedIn and you're like, hey, I see this job on System One. And I'll be like, oh, you need to talk to Kat because Jule's, that organization's running with us. So that's where that networking piece comes into play. Good recruiters will definitely make sure that they're trying to help you. They try to communicate with you. Ghosting is a problem with every organization and every industry right now. Good recruiters will also tell you bad news when it means that you might not have gotten that offer. They don't just kind of hide from you or anything like that. So looking for them, we're all over, LinkedIn. Look for larger established organizations. Look for recruiter profiles that weren't just created yesterday. You can see on people's profiles, how long have they been out there? How long have they been, working on LinkedIn? That should hopefully generate some speed of trust. That most recruiters that have earned their stripes, so to speak, in this industry have been through the industry for a while. They didn't just start yesterday. And I'm not opposing the ones that are juniors that are starting up, but if you're looking for a good recruiter, and you might want somebody that has some years of experience.
I think that was well said, Dennis. And I would say with System One branding, reach out to a System One recruiter. We have a really large database. I can find a job that Dennis is working on and send it right over to him. Say, hey, I have a qualified candidate. Looks like this job is open. Can you run with the candidate? So it really comes down to that networking from the very beginning that Dennis mentioned.
Well said. Our next question, how should a new grad emphasize hands-on projects, coursework, or technical skills when applying for entry-level technical roles without much experience? Great question.
Yeah, I could take that one. I actually work with a couple of positions that are entry level that they're, within the science field, but they are looking for someone who has maybe a biology degree or some sorts within science degree. And again, maybe not have a lot of years of experience, but maybe have done internships or even just worked random jobs here and there. But it shows that you had your work ethic, that regardless of school, you were still doing something. So always list those, because I think a lot of times people tend to realize, well, if it was a waitress job, but it's not relatable to the science, I won't list it. I would say include it because it shows, again, you're still working and doing something even while you're attending school, or even if it's just winter program. But that's what I would do. And then for coursework, you can always list it under your education. So you can put down a couple of courses that you took. If it's certain labs, you can write there certain labs, like, with biology or physics or whatever case may be, that that would highlight your experience to really match the job that you're going for. Same thing with technical skills. If there's certain instruments you're used within the lab itself, you can list those there because, again, they know that you just graduated. You may not have experience, like industry experience, but you have these courses that you took from school and learned a lot from it. So you can definitely do that.
One thing that I would add here, Kat, you hit everything on the head with adding the experience that you have. I think study the job market, notice what jobs that you'd like to work, and see what transferable skills or hands-on projects or coursework that you did. And say you have biology listed and the job description is looking for something a little deeper into the biology field. Well, if you did that, make sure you highlight those aspects. So study the job market, see what kind of jobs that you'd like to apply for, and see what you've done in correlation to those jobs.
Great answers. So for our next question, for candidates interested in pivoting their career, should a resume mention the career transition, or is it better to leave it out and focus on transferable skills and relevant experience? What approach would recruiters prefer for that?
I'll start. I think it comes down to how our searching boils down to in a database. If I'm looking for someone in HR and say you've been in, I don't know, we'll do like benefits, okay? Kind of a parallel, but say you want to go from benefits there. I would mention HR because it's going to pull into a database search. If I type in, hey, I'm looking for someone in Pittsburgh, and I build out that search criteria and I mention HR, if your resume mentions that, I can dive a little deeper into a little blurb. I say yes, but that is for some of my certain jobs. Maybe in the life sciences or more the technical side, they might not want that on a resume, but I think initially I like to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. From the technology standpoint, one of the challenges you may run into is that people are going to maybe be promoting jobs or sending you information on your previous history, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast. That's part of what you have to do to maybe get, but that also allows the opportunity to have more conversations. Again, when working with recruiters, we're not traditionally just working on one role. So when you're talking to a recruiter, you may say, hey, yeah, I have a background in X, but I'm really trying to go towards Y, and how can I get there? And who do you know that might be hiring for Y that has people with X experiences again? Mm-hmm. So that may be something that at least is getting your conversations going. So again, I agree. You should have your background on there, but also you might have to be prepared for maybe some frustration because all I'm seeing is jobs about this. It shouldn't be all you're seeing, but you're probably going to see an uptick on your jobs for your previous role.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And our next question, what is actionable advice that you have for someone who has been on the job market for 2 years? One piece of advice for each of you, because that's definitely a broad one.
Yeah, I can go. The biggest thing, and I kind of will put myself kind of in that buck a little bit. So I was laid off beforehand and I was out of work for 7 months. And after a while, it does take a toll on you and you feel some type of way and you're just like, oh, I'm applying to all these jobs. I feel like I'm getting no response or I'm getting ghosted. I don't know. Is it me? You want to make sure to have more of a positive outcome to it, even though, again, it's going to take a toll on you. You just want to think positive. Say, no matter what I do, I'm going to keep applying. The right opportunity will come along my way. And if you're out looking for a job and nothing's coming, we understand you might have to take something to help pay your bills. We will understand, managers will understand, life happens, unfortunately, and the market has also not been great either. So just keep a positive mindset. That's probably the best thing I can say to you.
I'll add to what Kat was mentioning about thinking positive. It's kind of the law of attraction here. If you buy a new car, you're going to see that car everywhere. So I think it's really, really great to focus on the positive, focus on what you've applied to, keep that tracker from, initially, and don't let it get you down. Build that up as motivation. Say, okay, I've tried this industry, it's not working. I've tried this area, it's not working. I've gotten responses on this area. So go for the positive. Forget the negative. We all have negative. happens every day. Try to drop that and try to go into something else, and then network. Try to network in person, via email, via LinkedIn, via conversations. Try it out, and you could run across someone that has the best tip ever, and it might land you the job.
Absolutely, and I think you guys hit on it. It's some of it has to do with mindset. In tech, we call it resume application fatigue. People just get exhausted from going out there and applying and applying and applying, and it starts to create that natural human cycle of some self-doubt. Hey, what's going on? To support the market has had tremendous ups and downs in the last couple of years, and if you're apply at the wrong time for the wrong job, it's not you, it is them. Nobody really wants to hear that, but keeping that mindset and staying positive is awesome. Again, talking to as many people as you can. One thing that I find that when people say they're applying, I'm like, how are you applying? And I think we may have touched on that, is don't just use the quick apply button. Volume is not the solution to applying for more jobs. Applying to more jobs and doing the same thing over and over again does not necessarily help your cycle. Break your cycle of your application process and maybe try some new strategies. The strategy may be, hey, I'm going to be very focused and intentional on applying to 5 jobs this week, but on each of those jobs, I'm going to find out who maybe the hiring manager is, or the talent acquisition, or the HR person, and I'm going to send a follow-up email to each of those roles, or I'm going to connect with somebody on LinkedIn. Some of the people that I've found that have had the most success have been very intentional, and it hasn't always been a volume game, if that helps.
And Dennis, not to use the word piggybacking, but you know what? That's one of my favorite corporate jargon words. To piggyback off of that, I think whenever you say you make this it's your full-time job right now, kind of whenever you have free time and you separate it, it's best to dive deeper into something. So just like Dennis is saying, go take that role, talk to that recruiter at the company, get another recruiter's contact at that company, and you can really dive deep. You don't want to go wide, you want to go deep. So I think what Dennis is saying is spot on. Get connected. It might not be the right person at first, but you want to have the real person communication, because that's who's going to land you the job. Quick apply, it might, but having that connection is really going to help.
Great answers. We're going to move on to an interview question. So how should someone structure the tell me about yourself question during an interview?
Whew, that's always a good one. It's a very subjective and great question from the standpoint is you also want to be able to read your room a little bit. Depending on the persona of the hiring manager, kind of depends on kind of how maybe deep you want to get with it. I tend to tell anyone that's interviewing through one of the hiring managers that we're connecting them with, maybe look at their LinkedIn profile, get to know a little bit of maybe about them, and see if there's something like, hey, you say you like kayaking, I like kayaking too, and maybe hit on stuff like that. Try and do a little bit of that back end research if possible, not always possible, but if you only have 30 minutes, be conscientious. Don't talk about yourself for 15 minutes. Keep it to a little soundbite of just a few minutes. It's not your whole life story, but anything that might be pertinent to what the company does or the job function that relates to you as a person. But it's hard. I don't have a like, hey, this is exactly what to do every single time. You kind of have to read your room. So. Yeah.
I think that's great. And this whole team knows that I'm a talker. So reading the room is really helpful, and reading the resume is going to be helpful because you can take, like Kat mentioned before, how is being a waitress going to have anything transferable for the biology lab? Well, you know what? You can stay organized. You're good under pressure. So you can also kind of grab what you've done before. Like, hey, I do like kayaking. I'm strong-willed. I have perseverance in, I don't know, like either a low river or a fast river. And that can kind of pull into how your background would work for the role. Now, say you're applying for a really, really HR role that you should really keep some personal things. I'd probably read the room at the end of the day, like Dennis is saying.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you guys. I mean, great points. I always tell people this, that as like a little thing is that for tell me about yourself, it should take about 5 minutes, 5 minutes and less. You can time yourself on this. You can talk to yourself in the mirror, like whatever case may be to practice. But I really think 5 minutes will give you enough time to kind of explain a little bit of your work history and of who you are as a person. And I know a lot of times managers also too will dig in deep about your experience and wanting to know more specifics. But again, that's very much, I guess what Dennis said too. You're going to read the room. You're going to figure out what to talk about, what makes more sense, how this is relatable to the job, to the experience that you have. Like I just recently had someone who interviewed for a position and they both worked in the restaurant together and had no idea. And they had a conversation and it was just like one of those best things that I felt like the connection was there. So things like that could happen. I think Dennis mentioned before, like look on the LinkedIn's profile or whoever the hiring manager's profile on LinkedIn, because a lot of times like you guys could attend the same school. You guys may know certain places or work at the same company. There's a lot of things that does help a lot, and you guys can like more of a conversational interview compared to something that's a little bit, I feel like awkward, because I think how people tend to feel awkward coming into an interview. But again, this could help and open it up a little bit more.
Well said. It is a small world, so that's great advice, Kat. I'm getting a lot of questions on being rejected and following up. So I'd like to end it by asking, what is an appropriate way to follow up with a hiring manager or a recruiter in terms of how often and in terms of the platform?
Yeah, I can take this. So I think it comes down to, if let's just say, for instance, you interviewed and the hiring manager is not moving forward, and I would tell you, of course, I always feel bad. We're always going to give you feedback, whatever case may be, to help you out to find you a better job, a better opportunity overall. And I always tell people, listen, I will continue to keep looking for opportunities for you no matter what. But I was like, if you can also help me too, go on our website, check what other positions are on there that maybe you like, that maybe I might have missed and I passed over it thinking that it's something you would have not enjoyed. But again, you know yourself more than anyone else. So if you can also do that, send me the link to the job. I will make sure to look into it and tell you more about the position.
I think that's great. I'll add one thing here because I've encouraged my candidates to, whoever you start with is who you should end with. So if I submit you to a job and you interview and the hiring manager tells me no, and I relay that to you, whether or not you have the email address for the client, the hiring manager, I recommend working with who you started with, because we can keep you in mind and everything like that. And it's best to start and end with the same person.
Yeah, there's really not much, to add to that. I think those are excellent points. Look, rejection's hard. It is, and unfortunately, given the nature of our marketplace right now, it is happening. Ghosting is even worse. Follow up with people. Follow up with your recruiter. Just say, hey, what's going on here? Sometimes your recruiters don't know, and they're not making up stories. We're not, we just don't know, or we've been ghosted and we don't have the information. And we're doing the best we can. So also understand that we run into the same problems you are as well too. Sometimes it is a tough place, and just keep trying. Just keep trying.
Oh, well said, everybody. Well, we are out of time for today. Thank you to our panel of experts and then everyone that asked questions. Don't forget to follow System 1 on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you tune in to Sound Off with System 1 every first and third Friday at 2 p.m. for more job seeker tips. Our next Sound Off with System 1 is live Friday, August 21st at 2 p.m., and we'll be discussing resume and social media profile optimization. See you then.